Every syllable that escapes your mouth carries weight, more than most realize. Words are not mere tools of communication. They are instruments of power, subtle weapons capable of constructing empires or dismantling them with the faintest whisper. To underestimate the force of language is to underestimate the hand that wields a blade. Every careless phrase can slice through alliances, sever trust, and expose the weaknesses you sought to conceal. A word spoken in anger may ignite a conflict that logic and reason could never quell. A word spoken in jest may reveal your intentions with cruel precision. The most dangerous aspect of words is their duality. They can conceal or reveal, build loyalty or breed betrayal, depending entirely on the mastery of the one who speaks them. Consider the power of a secret revealed in casual conversation, the subtle disclosure that escapes in a moment of pride or impatience. One's own mouth can betray ambition, desire, fear, or envy before any action confirms it. Leaders have lost kingdoms not because of armies, but because their tongues, in moments of perceived intimacy or confidence, exposed the schemes that were meant to remain invisible. The strength of a ruler, a strategist, or a negotiator is not measured by the number of allies they command, but by the control they maintain over their own speech. Those who speak without thought are powerless in comparison to those who understand that every statement carries consequence, that every sound can be interpreted as confession or threat. The wise do not underestimate the intelligence of those who listen. People are constantly observing, decoding the tone, the hesitation, the inflection. In every conversation, there are hidden eyes and ears, hungry for leverage, for a fragment of knowledge that can be turned into advantage. When one speaks carelessly, they provide ammunition to those who would use it against them. Even compliments can become traps. Even casual remarks can betray your ambitions if you fail to consider their broader impact. Words, once released, cannot be retracted. They linger in the minds of others, influencing perception and shaping reality in ways beyond your immediate control. The mouth becomes a battlefield, and every utterance is a potential ambush, capable of turning allies into enemies, of reshaping loyalties with the quiet efficiency of a knife in the dark. Furthermore, words have the peculiar ability to betray what lies beneath the surface of a composed exterior. A smooth demeanor, a carefully constructed mask of diplomacy and composure, can crumble with a single lapse of tongue. The most cunning of individuals understand that outward appearances are maintained not only through actions, but through disciplined restraint in speech. To speak without purpose is to surrender a fragment of control, and in that fragment lies vulnerability. Every boast, every exclamation of frustration, every slip of sarcasm carries a risk, the risk of revealing too much of oneself to the perceptive observer. Those who have mastered the art of speech understand the necessity of brevity, the power of silence, and the strategic deployment of words that serve their design rather than their impulse. Words also betray intention. When negotiating, plotting, or maneuvering through the labyrinth of influence, one's tongue can announce plans prematurely, alert rivals to desires not yet acted upon, and expose the very strategy meant to be hidden. People listen not only for what is said, but for what is avoided, and the absence of words can be as telling as their presence. Thus, the mouth becomes a weapon with multiple edges. It can assert dominance, project fear, or create illusions of weakness, yet it can just as easily reveal truth, desire, and vulnerability to the alert and calculating listener. Mastery over speech is mastery over perception, and perception is the foundation of power. To speak without restraint is to surrender the story of your own life to the interpretations of others. Every conversation, every casual remark, every declaration carries the potential to shape perception, to define how others see you and how they react to you. Those who fail to control the narrative are at the mercy of the minds that interpret their words, leaving their intentions vulnerable to distortion, manipulation, and ultimately, exploitation. Control over what is said, and when it is said, is a form of dominion more powerful than armies, more enduring than wealth, because it governs the most fragile yet potent element of human interaction: belief. To master the narrative is to dictate the frame within which your actions, motives, and character are perceived, and in that control lies influence over the decisions, loyalty, and fears of others. When one speaks impulsively, the narrative is stolen from them. A single unguarded comment can alter the course of a relationship, a career, or even a lifetime. People will interpret words in ways that serve their own interests, filtering them through bias, hope, and suspicion. Your uncalculated speech becomes a mirror reflecting not who you are but what others want to see, what they expect, and what they can exploit. The astute understand that it is not the truth that controls power, but the perception of truth, and perception is sculpted meticulously through the careful curation of words, omissions, and silences. Each phrase must serve the greater architecture of your influence. Each story you tell must reinforce the image you intend to project. In this way, speech becomes a tool for crafting reality, rather than merely describing it, a weapon for guiding the thoughts and emotions of those who would otherwise interpret your actions freely. Silence, paradoxically, can be more commanding than speech. By allowing others to speak, to reveal their intentions, to make claims about the world and about you, you gain insight, leverage, and control. The one who dominates the narrative often does so not by speaking the most, but by speaking the least, intervening only when the timing guarantees that words serve their purpose, rather than expose their vulnerability. To interject at the precise moment is to redirect the current of thought, to seize the interpretive framework and bend it toward your advantage. In every interaction, there is a tension between expression and restraint, between revealing enough to guide perception and concealing enough to maintain authority. The failure to understand this tension is to invite others to write your story for you, leaving you as little more than a character in the script of their ambition and imagination. Furthermore, the narrative you control must be consistent, deliberate, and persuasive. Contradictions in speech, even subtle ones, are noticed and exploited. The audience, whether ally or adversary, is always attuned to inconsistencies, aware of gaps between assertion and behavior. When your words align with your actions and your actions align with your unspoken intentions, you project credibility, authority, and inevitability. When they diverge, your narrative crumbles, and the very people you seek to influence become your critics, your saboteurs, and your witnesses to weakness. The narrative must also anticipate the interpretations of others, crafting messages not only for the immediate listener, but for the unseen observers whose judgments shape opportunity, trust, and fear. To control the narrative is to anticipate every potential reading, to manipulate the layers of perception that exist simultaneously in the minds of many, and to emerge in every interpretation stronger, untouchable, and intentional. In moments of uncertainty, the mouth can betray more than it conceals, yet when wielded with strategic precision, it becomes the architect of influence, capable of transforming reality to fit the design of the speaker. Each word, each pause, each deliberate omission builds a framework in which others act according to the story you dictate, believing it to be their own interpretation. In this way, mastery over narrative is mastery over circumstance, over allies and adversaries alike, and the one who controls the flow of information commands not only attention but action. Diplomacy is not merely a manner of speaking politely or maintaining civility, it is the deliberate art of concealment, the strategic display of intentions designed to shield weakness and project strength. The mask of diplomacy is not a superficial veneer, but a calculated instrument of influence, a tool by which the cunning navigate the complexities of human interaction without revealing the raw impulses that drive them. To master diplomacy is to understand that words can flatter, manipulate, and mislead, and that the appearance of honesty is often more potent than honesty itself. The mouth, unguarded, is capable of betraying even the most carefully constructed persona, and the mask exists precisely to prevent such betrayals, allowing the wise to wield influence while remaining insulated from vulnerability. Every interaction, whether between allies, rivals, or strangers, is an opportunity for observation and evaluation. The unmasked reveal their desires, their fears, their strategies without restraint, exposing themselves to the scrutiny of those who would seize advantage. The masked, by contrast, speak with deliberate ambiguity, crafting statements that convey civility and engagement while withholding the full measure of their intent. In diplomacy, words serve as both shield and sword. A compliment may soothe suspicion, a vague promise may bind an ally, and silence may communicate authority. The mastery of such techniques is not a matter of morality or etiquette, but of survival and efficacy in a world governed by ambition, competition, and shifting loyalties. The mask of diplomacy is especially critical when power is at stake. To reveal the strength of one's desire too openly is to invite resistance. To expose the limits of one's patience is to encourage exploitation. Therefore, the prudent individual moderates speech, choosing expressions that maintain ambiguity, balance honesty with deception, and ensure that the listener can never fully discern the depth of intent. Every smile, every measured nod, every carefully crafted sentence is a signal, deliberately calibrated to guide perception without revealing the full map of strategy. Those who underestimate this subtlety mistake civility for weakness and fail to recognize that diplomacy is the stage on which true power operates unseen. Moreover, the mask protects against the betrayal inherent in overexposure. Even those closest to us are not immune to the allure of advantage, and the unguarded tongue can provide weapons to adversaries disguised as confidence. A casual disclosure, a tone of impatience, or a fragment of truth can unravel alliances meticulously built over years. By employing the mask of diplomacy, one can navigate treacherous social and political landscapes, offering reassurance to allies, disarming suspicion among adversaries, and maintaining a reputation for integrity, while executing strategies invisible to the untrained eye. The wise understand that appearances are not illusions but tools, and that the perception of fairness, respect, and consistency often secures obedience and loyalty more effectively than brute force or open confrontation. Furthermore, diplomacy requires adaptability. The mask must shift to suit the environment, the audience, and the moment. The tone that inspires trust in one setting may provoke suspicion in another. The phrase that comforts a friend may unsettle an opponent. The strategic speaker is a chameleon, adjusting expression, cadence, and rhetoric to ensure that the intended message aligns with the perception they wish to cultivate. Flexibility is not indecision but intelligence, the careful calculation of how much to reveal, what to conceal, and when to interject to maintain advantage. By mastering this delicate balance, one transforms the mouth from a liability into an instrument of control, capable of navigating conflict, negotiation, and collaboration with the precision of a master tactician. The essence of the mask is subtlety. It does not require grand gestures or overt deception. It operates in the spaces between words, in the pauses, in the artful evasion of topics that might betray too much. The unmasked reveal their minds, the masked manipulate perception, allowing others to reach conclusions that serve the speaker's purposes without ever realizing it. To wield the mask of diplomacy is to command the room without raising one's voice, to dictate outcomes through suggestion and insinuation rather than explicit declaration, and to protect oneself from the unavoidable betrayals that arise from unguarded speech. The mastery of speech is inseparable from the mastery of time. To speak without consideration of the moment is to surrender the advantage that comes from strategy, leaving words to drift into the realm of consequence without control. Timing is the invisible hand that elevates statements from mere noise to instruments of influence, transforming utterances into actions that shape perception, manipulate intention, and dictate outcomes. Those who act or speak prematurely often undermine their own position, revealing plans before they are ready, exposing weaknesses before strength can be consolidated, and forfeiting authority to those who understand that the moment of delivery is as important as the content itself. To command influence, one must not only choose words carefully, but release them with precision, allowing the situation, the audience, and the psychological landscape to align in a way that maximizes impact. Words spoken too soon betray ambition. The desire to assert oneself, to clarify intentions, or to respond impulsively can reveal vulnerabilities, alert adversaries, and destabilize alliances. The observant, however, wait, using silence as a tool to gather information, gauge reactions, and assess the subtle currents of perception. They recognize that the premature declaration of thoughts or intentions can provoke resistance, invite exploitation, and diminish the potency of future action. Timing is the distinction between revealing power and exposing weakness. It transforms speech into a lever that moves not only minds but circumstances themselves. By withholding commentary until the precise moment, one ensures that words do not merely echo but resonate, altering the landscape of interaction to one's advantage. Patience, in this context, is not passivity but strategic calculation. The wise speaker studies the flow of conversation, the moods of interlocutors, and the dynamics of influence, waiting until conditions are ripe for words to carry weight. The advantage lies in anticipation, predicting how statements will be received, understanding how silence may provoke disclosure from others, and recognizing the precise point at which intervention will create maximum disruption or alignment. A single phrase delivered at the wrong moment may undermine authority, reveal desire, or expose vulnerability. The same phrase, strategically timed, can intimidate rivals, secure loyalty, or manipulate perception with seemingly effortless skill. The alignment of words and timing transforms speech into power, allowing the speaker to command not through force but through control of narrative, perception, and expectation. Moreover, the principle of timing extends beyond the moment of speaking to the broader rhythm of influence. Repetition without pause can diminish the weight of words, Delay without purpose can be interpreted as indecision or weakness. The balance is subtle and requires careful observation of human behavior, the patterns of engagement, and the psychological states of those involved. The strategic speaker measures both intervals and content, recognizing that influence is cumulative, statements build upon one another, anticipation sharpens attention, and well-timed interventions amplify authority. By mastering the cadence of communication, the individual exerts control over how messages are received, interpreted, and acted upon, ensuring that speech serves not merely as expression, but as an instrument of deliberate consequence. Timing also magnifies the effect of restraint. Silence, when deployed judiciously, can provoke disclosure from others, create tension, and allow the observer to absorb critical information. The wise recognize that absence of speech can be more commanding than presence, that the delay between words communicates confidence, contemplation, and control. Those who rush to speak often reveal more than they intend. Those who wait can reveal nothing while extracting insight from every interaction. Timing, therefore, is the intersection of restraint and action, observation and intervention, allowing the strategic speaker to manipulate outcomes while remaining unexposed to the risks that accompany impulsive expression. Ultimately, every word has potential, but potential is meaningless without the understanding of when to release it. Timing converts intention into perception, thought into influence, and words into instruments capable of shifting relationships, altering alliances, and shaping events. The mouth, when allied with patience and observation, becomes a weapon whose effect is multiplied by the precision of its deployment, and the individual who masters this alliance achieves authority that is both subtle and absolute. Betrayal is the shadow that follows every unguarded word, the hidden cost of a tongue unleashed without foresight. Every conversation carries the potential to betray, not merely to expose secrets, but to reveal intentions, strategies, and vulnerabilities that were meant to remain hidden. Those who fail to recognize this reality live in constant peril, for the mouth can betray with the subtlety of a whisper or the apparent innocence of a joke. To underestimate the consequences of betrayal is to underestimate human perception itself. Words linger beyond their utterance, interpreted, reframed, and weaponized by those who have learned to listen not just for meaning but for advantage. A careless confession, a tone of impatience, or a fleeting comment can provide rivals with the leverage necessary to disrupt influence, undermine authority, and exploit weaknesses that were never meant to be visible. The most insidious form of betrayal is that which arises from the self. It is not only the enemy who threatens, the individual often becomes their own adversary through moments of arrogance, frustration, or misplaced trust. The mouth, when uncontrolled, becomes a vector through which ambition, desire, and fear are disclosed, revealing what the mind seeks to conceal. Even among allies, words can act as keys that unlock doors of suspicion or jealousy, inviting manipulation by those who perceive opportunity. The consequences are rarely immediate. Betrayal often operates silently, reshaping perception, eroding loyalty, and altering relationships long before its source is recognized. It is in this subtlety that speech becomes dangerous. The speaker may remain unaware of the damage inflicted, while the listener converts every nuance into leverage. Furthermore, betrayal is amplified when trust is involved. The greater the expectation of discretion, the more profound the impact when words escape their intended containment. A confidant is not merely a friend but a vessel of perception, capable of interpreting statements and motives in ways that can either reinforce alliances or dismantle them. The unguarded tongue provides the ammunition for those with insight, for those who are willing to exploit every fragment of information. Historical patterns reveal that the downfall of leaders, strategists, and negotiators often originates not in the conspicuous battles of force, but in the subtle betrayals of speech. Secrets, ambitions, and strategies revealed too early, too carelessly, or to the wrong audience become instruments of ruin. Consequences extend beyond reputation to tangible outcomes in influence, opportunity, and survival. Once a word has betrayed its speaker, trust must be reconstructed at great effort, if it can be reconstructed at all. Alliances, once weakened by disclosure, are difficult to mend, rivals grow emboldened, uncertainty permeates every interaction. Betrayal of speech is therefore not merely a personal failing but a strategic liability, capable of altering the landscape of power in ways that are immediate and enduring. Every utterance carries the dual potential to fortify one's position or to dismantle it, and the difference between the two is the discipline to recognize that speech is never neutral. Mastery over betrayal, then, requires foresight, self-awareness, and restraint. It demands an understanding of the consequences that words can trigger, the ripple effects that extend beyond immediate comprehension, and the awareness that even minor disclosures can be weaponized in the service of others' advantage. Strategic silence, deliberate ambiguity, and careful framing of every statement are not signs of weakness, but instruments of preservation and power. By controlling what is revealed, and when, the individual safeguards not only their secrets but the trajectory of influence, ensuring that speech serves as a conduit for intention rather than a channel for unintended surrender. The consequences of betrayal, while inevitable for the careless, can be mitigated and redirected through vigilance, discipline, and the strategic mastery of communication. The truth is simple yet brutal. Your own mouth can be your greatest weapon or your most treacherous enemy. Every word carries weight, every pause holds power, and every slip can unravel carefully laid plans. Mastery over speech is mastery over fate. It demands vigilance, strategy, and an unrelenting awareness that others are always listening, always interpreting, always waiting to turn your disclosure into their advantage. Silence is not weakness. Timing is not hesitation. Diplomacy is not deceit. They are shields and blades forged in the art of survival and influence. By controlling what you reveal, by speaking only when it serves your design, and by concealing your true intentions behind the mask of strategy, you transform the potential betrayal of your tongue into the instrument of your authority. The consequences of every utterance are real, and the wise never forget that the mouth, when wielded with precision, can command loyalty, manipulate perception, and shape reality itself. Power is not given, it is spoken into being, but only by those who understand that the mastery of speech is the mastery of all.